Hey guys, it's reading day, and today's book is Bram Stoker's Dracula. We'll be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Happy Sunday, everybody. How's everybody doing? It has been quite the news day. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you have a paranormal need, we can get to you. It might take us a while, because California is a ginormous state, but we will get to you, and in the case that we can't get out to you that same day or right away, we do have psychics on staff who can phone you and talk to you about what may or may not be going on within your home or business. And if they do, think it's paranormal, they can, in most cases, calm the energy down until we can get out there, but we will get out there. That being said, if you're watching from Facebook today, and a lot of you are, this is the day, well, for everybody, this is the day that I read from a paranormal themed book. It might be it might be true ghost stories, it might be fantasy ghost stories, or it could be like today, Bram Stoker's Dracula from a classic. We might do this, and then around Halloween, read Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. We'll see. But this is what I do on Sunday, and it kind of gets you into your work week, right? You kind of sit back and put your fuzzies on and dim those lights and just listen to me read and think of vampires biting you in the neck and all that good stuff, So this kind of slowly slides you into the work week. And if you're on vacation, maybe you're sitting around a campfire right now. Perfect timing, right? Put me on a speaker. I can do it. We can do this. And I do have listeners online who clean house when I'm reading. Some carry me in their pocket to do their laundry, do their floors. It's kind of nice to get around the house, Anyway, if you're watching from Facebook, and like I said, a lot of you are, and you haven't done so already, please hit that follow button. Always looking for followers. Also, don't be shy. During the show, feel free to comment in the chat room. I can see the chat room. And feel free, if you like it here, if you hear and like what you see, leave me a thumbs up or a happy face or a heart or something to show me some love. Because what that does is that does put us up higher in the FYP, which is the For You page. Now, when you go down Facebook and you scroll, and first you come across, the reels. Below the reels are the suggested stuff that Facebook's computers have suggested for you. And that's what the FYP, the For You page, does. So when you guys comment and do stuff, and thumbs up and all that, Facebook computer sees that and puts you up in the hierarchy on those pages and puts us out there. So I'd really appreciate that. Would be fun. YouTube works the same way. If you haven't checked out my YouTube page at youtube.com/@California Haunts Radio, we have more than 1,000 videos sitting over there, all of this show. And these videos are all different topics. I'm a photojournalist. Journalist is my real job. And I like to vary it. I'll put news items up there, like our Tuesday show that's scheduled, which you guys are going to have to check out. That's a news item. And so I'll put news items out there as well as ghost stuff and psychic stuff. Also, I've taken the liberty, and I'm still in the process, there's so many videos, of putting these things under categories. So if you're into cryptids, there's a cryptid file. If you're into Psychic Nancy Matt, she's got her own file. You can click on whatever show topic you want. You can check that out. Also, same rules apply. If you're watching from YouTube, and some of you will be, or maybe later on you're watching from YouTube because of what's going on in the world, be sure to hit that. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Hit that thumbs up for me. Hit that thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. I definitely would appreciate it. And I'm freezing up. I don't know why I shouldn't be freezing up. Let me check a setting here quick because I should not be freezing up. Let me look at something really quick, guys. I promise I'll be with you. Give me a second. Nope. I don't have that going on either. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. We shouldn't be having these problems. I ran, because of what's going on, and everybody, well, they're just coming home probably. Everybody in this neighborhood has Xfinity, right? And with what's going on politically, it's just, the Xfinity gets just dragged way down. Well, just before I started the show, I ran the Xfinity speed check, and the speed check was fine. And I am in a room in my house that is way at the back, the way at the north end of my house, and my internet sucker up, or I don't know, my modem and all that is like midway through my house, and it's like I would say it's that's in the hallway. There's like one room between it and us, and so and this is really I'm in a closet that's got like double boarding, so the internet does that stuff does have issues getting in here. Someday when I get richer, I'll have like internet enhancers for the router and stuff, so we'll do better back here. But I've gotten the high speed internet I can afford, and so sometimes it just doesn't make it back here. But okay, now I'm okay. So who knows if we're gonna have those stops and starts. Okay. That being said, I don't do politics, and that's why we're not doing it. But what I'm going to say is that I was going to try and broadcast tonight on TikTok as well. But you know what? I was out. I had my 20-year-old dog, and I like to make sure because he likes to wander and he gets caught behind things. So I have him locked up, locked in a crate when I can't be in the room with him, and so I like to get him up, and I like to walk him around and give him water and things like that. And so I was doing that, and by the time between watching all the TV coverage today and getting the dog set and ready to go for me to come in here and work, I'm just soaked, absolutely soaked. So I know I have no AC in there, so I'm absolutely soaked. So I decided to not do TikTok because I would have to turn the air conditioner off today. So we're not going to go do that. All right. So we are going to continue with Bram Stoker's Dracula. We are in, I don't know what chapter we're in. I don't do Roman numerals. All I know is we're on day 6. So I'll read this out for you guys, for you gurus that do Roman numerals. Let's do this. Chapter IX. Okay? So, yeah. Chapter IX. So far we've seen, just to give you guys an update, because we did read last Monday. So there's an extra chapter in between that you guys didn't hear. So far we've, I know Minia was Lucy was prepared. I think Minia was being proposed to. So was her friend, her friend Lucy, and so we read all these diaries from these different people that had proposed to them. We read the diary of the psychologist who was the doctor from Renfield, who I think has escaped now. Renfield was collecting spiders and eating them and birds and all this stuff. He has escaped now. The ship has landed with all the dead guys aboard. The ship has landed onto the English soil, and these boxes full of earth have been taken to like this old chapel, so we know who was obviously in the boxes, right? And then Lucy, because Minnie and Lucy like to go on this bench in the cemetery to look out over the ocean. I guess it's a real pretty view. And so, well, if you're gonna do this, let's make sure with Dracula coming to sit there on a bench in the cemetery. So Mina has been noticing that, or Mina, Mina has been noticing that Lucy is having issues at night. She likes to get up and wander at night. She thinks she's sleepwalking. And she's noticed that she has a wound on her neck. Okay? The 2 little pinpricks on the neck. And I think she has even seen a bat. I'm not positive. I can't remember exactly. So that's where we're at. And Jimmy, is it James? I think it's James. James has gone missing. She hasn't gotten a lot of letters from him. Remember, he was over in Transylvania with the Count. And if you remember correctly, that the Count had written some letters for him that he was sending home for him. So we don't know if James is alive. I hope his name's James. I sound really stupid, but if he's alive or dead. But these letters are starting to arrive to Mina. Okay, so now this chapter is going to start off with one of those letters. Okay, so let me have a quick drink of water here, and away we go. That would be your update, your quickie update. And I hope you can hear me well. If anybody's out in the chat room, let me know how the audio is. As I made some audio changes from what we've been going through the past couple weeks. It's been sucky audio. Did I introduce myself? I don't remember. My name is Charlotte. This is how we do things. Lots of outtakes. Chapter IX, letter Mina Harker to Lucy. Oh, she's using his last name. Did they get married? Jonathan Harker, right? Yeah, because her name, I don't think her name was Harker. Unless she's already using his last name. Oh, I'm confused now. Okay. Letter, Mina Harker to Lucy Westrina. Budapest. 24 August. My dearest Lucy. I know you'll be anxious to hear all that has happened since we parted. At the railway station, it would be. Well, my dear, I got to Hull, all right, and caught the boat to Hamburg, and then the train on here. I feel that I can hardly recall anything of the journey, except that I knew. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Jonathan Harker. See, I knew it. James, said James. I feel that I can hardly recall anything of the journey, except that I knew I was coming to Jonathan, and that, as I should, have to do some nursing. I had better get all the sleep I could. I found my dear one, oh, so thin and pale, and weak-looking. All the resolution has gone out of his dear eyes, and that quiet dignity, which I told you was in his face, has vanished. He is only a wreck of himself, and he does not remember anything that has happened to him for a long time past. At least he wants me to believe so, and I shall never ask. He has had some terrible shock, and I fear it might tax his poor brain, if he were to try to recall it. I'm just looking at the time, okay. Sister Agatha, who is a good creature and a born nurse, tells me that he raved of dreadful things whilst he was off his head. I wanted her to tell me what they were, but she would only cross herself and say she would never tell, that the ravings of the sick were the secrets of God, and that if a nurse, through her vocation, should hear them, she should respect her trust. She is a sweet, good soul, and the next day, when she saw I was troubled, she opened up the subject again, and after saying that she could never mention what my poor dear raved about, added, I can tell you this much, my dear, that it was not about anything which he has done wrong himself, and you, as his wife-to-be, have no cause to be concerned. He has not forgotten you, or what he owes to you. His fear was of great and terrible things, which no mortal can treat, of. I do believe the dear soul thought I might be jealous, lest my poor dear should have fallen in love with any other girl. The idea of my being jealous about Jonathan. And yet, my dear, let me whisper, I felt a thrill of joy through me when I knew that no other woman was the cause of the trouble. I'm now sitting by his bedside where I can see his face while he sleeps. He's waking. When he woke, he asked me for his coat, as he wanted to get something from the pocket. I asked Sister Agatha, and she brought all his things. I saw that amongst them was his notebook, and was going to ask him to let me look at it, for I knew then that I might find some clue to his trouble. But I suppose he must have seen my wish in my eyes, for he sent me over the window, saying he wanted to be quite alone for a moment. Then he called me back, and when I came, he had his hand over the notebook, and he said to me very solemnly, Wilhelmina. I knew then that he was in deadly earnest, for he has never called me by that name since he asked me to marry him. You know, dear, my ideas of the trust between husband and wife. There should be no secret, no concealment. I've had a great shock, and when I try to think of what it is I feel my head spin around, and I do not know if it was all real or the dreaming of a madman. You know I have had brain fever, and that is to be mad. The secret is here, and I do not want to know it. I want to take up my life here, with our marriage. For, my dear, we had decided to be married as soon as the formalities are complete. Are you willing, Wilhelmina, to share my ignorance? Here is the book. Take it, and keep it. Read it, if you will, but never let me know, unless indeed some solemn duty should come upon me to go back to the bitter hours, asleep or awake, sane or mad, recorded here. He fell back exhausted, and I put the book under his pillow and kissed him. I have asked Sister Agatha to beg the Superior to let our wedding be this afternoon, and am waiting her reply. She has come and told me that the chaplain of the English Mission Church has been sent for. We are to be married in an hour, or as soon after Jonathan awakes. Lucy, the time has come and gone. I feel very solemn, but very, very happy. Jonathan woke a little after the hour, and all was ready, and he sat up in bed, propped up with pillows. He answered his I will, firmly and strongly. I could hardly speak. My heart was so full that even those words seemed to choke me. The dear sisters were so kind. Please God, I shall never, never forget them, nor the grave and sweet responsibilities I have taken upon me. I must tell you of my wedding present. When the chaplain and the sisters had left me alone with my husband. Oh, Lucy, it is the first time I have written the words my husband left me alone with my husband, left me alone with my husband. I took the book from under his pillow and wrapped it up in white paper and tied it with a little bit of pale blue ribbon, which was round my neck, and sealed it over the knot with sealing wax. And for my seal, I used my wedding ring. Then I kissed it and showed it to my husband, and told him that I would keep it so, and then it would be an outward, invisible sign for us all our lives that we trusted each other. That I would never open it, unless it was for his own dear sake, or for the sake of Stern. Then he took my hand in his, and oh, Lucy, it was the first time he took his wife's hand, and said that it was the dearest thing in all the wide world, and that he would go through all the past again to win it, if need be. The poor dear meant to have said part of the past, but he cannot think of time yet, and I shall not wonder if at first he mixes up not only the month, but the year. Well, my dear, what could I say? I could only tell him that I was the happiest woman in all the wide world, and that I had nothing to give him except myself, my life, and my trust, and that, with these, went my love and duty for all the days of my life. And, my dear, when he kissed me and drew me to him with his poor weak hands, it was like a very solemn pledge between us. Lucy, dear, do you know why I tell you all this? It is not only because it is all sweet to me, but because you have been and are very dear to me. It was my privilege to be your friend and guide you when you came from the schoolroom to prepare for the world of life. I want you to see now, and with the eyes of a very happy wife, whither duty has led me, so that in your own married life you too may be all happy as I am. My dear, please, Almighty God, your life may be all it promises. A long day of sunshine, with no harsh wind, no forgetting duty, no distrust. I must not wish you any pain, for that can never be, but I do hope you will be always as happy as I am now. Goodbye, my dear. I shall post this at once, and perhaps write you very soon again. I must stop, for Jonathan is waking. I must attend to my husband. Your ever-loving Mina Harker. Well, that explains why it's Mina Harker. Letter. Lucy Westenra to Mina Harker. Whitby, 30 August. My dearest Mina, oceans of love and millions of kisses, and may you soon be in your own home with your husband. I wish you could be coming home soon, enough to stay with us here. The strong air would soon restore Jonathan. It has quite restored me. I have an appetite, and full of life, and sleep well. You will be glad to know that I have quite given up walking in my sleep. I think I have not stirred out of my bed for a week. That is when I once got into it at night. Arthur says I'm getting fat. By the way, I forgot to tell you that Arthur is here. Whew, I'm hot. I'm sorry. We have such walks and drives. Marisa, hello. I forgot to tell you that Arthur is here. We have such walks and drives and rides, and rowing, and tennis, and fishing together. And I love him more than ever. He tells me that he loves me more, but I doubt that. For at first he told me that he couldn't love me more than he did then. But this is nonsense. There he is calling to me. So no more, just at present, from your loving Lucy. Let me do this really quick, you guys. I get overheated really fast because of my heart failure, and since being in there and moving around, it takes me just as long. It takes me long to cool down. So you're gonna see me swiping the sweat off because, like I said, my clothes are soaked, and I'm just trying to cool down here. All right. P.S. Mother sends her love. She seems better, poor dear. P.P.S. We are to be married on 28 September. Okay. Dr. Seward's diary, 20 August. The case of Renfield grows even more interesting. Oh, I guess he didn't escape. He is now so far quieted that there are spells of cessation from his passion. For the first week after his attack, he was perpetually violent. Then one night, just as the moon rose, he grew quiet and kept murmuring to himself, "Now I can wait. Now I can wait." The attendant came to tell me, so I ran down at once to have a look at him. He was still in the straight waistcoat and in the padded room, but the suffused look had gone from his face, and his eyes had something of their old pleading. I might almost say cringing softness. I was satisfied with his present condition, and directed him to be relieved. The attendants hesitated, but finally carried out my wishes without protest. It was a strange thing that the patient had humor enough to see their distrust for coming close to me. He said in a whisper, all the while looking furtively at them, "They think I could hurt you. Fancy me hurting you, the fools." It was soothing somehow, to the feelings to find myself disassociated, even in the mind of this poor madman, from the others. But all the same, I do not follow. I do not follow his thought. Am I to take it that I have anything in common with him, so that we are, as it were, to stand together, or has he to gain from me some good so stupendous that my well-being is needful of him? I must find out later on. Tonight, he won't speak. Even the offer of a kitten, or even a full-grown cat, will not tempt him. He will only say, "I don't take any stock in cats. I have more to think of now, and I can wait. I can wait." Kind of creepy. After a while, I left him. The attendant tells me that he was quiet until just before dawn, and that then he began to get uneasy, and at length violent, until at last he fell into a paroxysm. I'm reading too fast, which exhausted him so that he swooned into a sort of coma. 3 nights has the same thing happened. Violent all day, then quiet from moonrise to sunrise. I wish I could get some clue to the cause. It would almost seem as if there was some influence which came and went. Happy thought. We shall tonight play sane wits against mad ones. He escaped before without our help. Tonight he shall escape with it. We shall give him a chance and have the men ready to follow in case they are required. See, he did escape, so I wasn't wrong. 23 August. The unexpected always happens. How well does Aurelian knew life. Our bird, when he found the cage open, would not fly. So all our subtle arrangements were for naught. At any rate, we have proved one thing, that the spells of quietness last a reasonable time. We shall in the future be able to ease his bonds for a few hours each day. I have given orders to the night attendant merely to shut him in the padded room when once he is quiet, until an hour before sunrise. The poor soul's body will enjoy the relief even if his mind cannot appreciate it. Hark! The unexpected again. I am called. The patient has once more escaped. Later. Another non-adventure. Renfield artfully waited until the attendant was entering the room to inspect. Then he dashed out past him and flew down the passage. I sent word for the attendants to follow. Again he went into the grounds of the deserted house, and we found him in the same place, pressed against the old chapel door. When he saw me, he became furious, and had not the attendant seized him in time, he would have tried to kill me. As we were holding him, a strange thing happened. He suddenly redoubled his efforts, and then as suddenly grew calm. I looked round instinctively, but could not see anything. Then I caught the patient's eye and followed it, but could trace nothing as it looked into the moonlit sky, except a big bat, which was flapping its silent and ghostly way to the west. Bats usually wheel and flit about, but this one seemed to go straight on, as if it knew where it was bound for, and had some intention of its own. The patient grew calmer every instant, and presently said, "You needn't tie me. I shall go quietly." Without trouble, we came back to the house. I feel there is something ominous in his calm, and shall not forget this night. Lucy Westrow's Diary. Hillingham, 24 August. I must imitate Mina. I'm losing my mind. Mina. And keep Mina. See? 3 times I finally got it. Mina. And keep writing things down. Then we can have long talks when we do meet. I wonder when that's going to be. I wish she were with me again, for I feel so unhappy. Last night I seemed to be dreaming again, just as I was at Whitby. Perhaps it is the change of air, or getting home again. It's all dark and horrid to me, for I can remember nothing. But I am full of vague fear, and I feel so weak and worn out. When Arthur came to lunch, he looked quite grieved when he saw me, and I hadn't the spirit to try to be cheerful. I wonder if I could sleep in Mother's room tonight. I shall make an excuse and try. 25 August. Another bad night. Mother did not seem to take my proposal. She seems not too well herself, and doubtless she fears to worry me. I tried to keep awake and succeeded for a while, but when the clock struck 12, it waked me from a doze. So I must have been falling asleep. There was a short scratching or flapping at the window, but I did not mind it, and as I remembered no more, I suppose I must have then fallen asleep. More bad dreams. I wish I could remember them. This morning I'm horribly weak. My face is ghastly pale, and my throat pains me. It must be something wrong with my lungs, for I don't seem ever to get air enough. I shall try to cheer up when Arthur comes, or else I know he will be miserable to see me so. Letter. Arthur Holmwood to Dr. Seward. Albemarle Hotel, 31 August. My dear Jack, I want you to do me a favor. Lucy is ill. That is, she has no special disease, but she looks awful, and is getting worse every day. I have asked her if there is any cause. I do not dare to ask her mother, for to disturb the poor lady's mind about her daughter in her present state of mind, or her present state of health, would be fatal. Mrs. Westenra, why did I have trouble with that? Has confided to me that her doom is spoken, disease of the heart, though poor Lucy does not know it yet. I'm sure that there is something preying on my dear girl's mind. I am almost distracted when I think of her. To look at her gives me a pang. I told her I should ask you to see her, and though she demurred at first, I know why. Old fellow, she finally consented. It will be a painful task for you, I know, old friend, but it is for her sake, and I must not hesitate to ask, or you to act. You are to come to lunch at Hillingham tomorrow, 2 o'clock, so as not to arouse any suspicion in Mrs. Westenra. Finally got it right. And after lunch, Lucy will take an opportunity of being alone with you. I shall come in for tea, and we can go away together. I am filled with anxiety, and want to consult with you alone as soon as I can after you have seen her. Do not fail. Telegram. Arthur. Telegram. Arthur Holmwood to Seward. 1 September. Am summoned to see my father, who is worse. Am writing. Write me fully by tonight's post to bring. Wire me if necessary. Letter from Dr. Seward to Arthur Holmwood. 2 September. My dear old fellow, with regard to Miss Western's health, I hasten to let you know at once that in my opinion there is not any functional disturbance or any malady that I know of. At the same time, I am not by any means satisfied with her appearance. She is woefully different from what she was when I saw her last. Of course, you must bear in mind that I did not have full opportunity of examination, such as I should wish. Our very friendship makes a little difficulty, which not even medical science or custom can bridge over. I had better tell you exactly what happened, leaving you to draw, in a measure, of your own conclusions. I shall then say what I have done and propose doing. I found Miss Westenra in seemingly gay spirits. Her mother was present, and in a few seconds I made up my mind that she was trying all she knew to mislead her mother and prevent her from being anxious. I have no doubt she guesses, if she does not know, what need of caution there is. We lunched alone, and as we all exerted ourselves to be cheerful, we got, as some kind of reward for our labors, some real cheerfulness amongst us. Then Mrs. Westenra went to lie down, and Lucy was left with me. We went into her bedroom, and until we got there, her gaiety remained, for the servants were coming and going. As soon as the door was closed, however, the mask fell from her face, and she sank down into a chair with a great sigh, and hid her eyes with her hand. When I saw that her high spirits had failed, I at once took advantage of her reaction to make a diagnosis. She said to me very sweetly, I cannot tell you how I loathe talking about myself. I reminded her that a doctor's confidence was sacred, but that you were grievously anxious about her. She caught on to my meaning at once, and settled that matter in a word. Tell Arthur everything you choose. I do not care for myself, but all for him, so I'm quite free. I could easily see that she is somewhat bloodless, but I could not see the usual anemic signs, and, by a chance, I was actually able to test the quality of her blood, for in opening a window, which was stiff, a cord gave way, and she cut her hand slightly with broken glass. It was a slight matter in itself, but it gave me an evident chance, and I secured a few drops of the blood and have analyzed them. The qualitative analysis gives a quite normal condition and shows, I should infer, in itself a vigorous state of health. In other physical matters, I was quite satisfied that there was no need for anxiety. But, as there must be a cause somewhere, I have come to the conclusion that it must be something mental. She complains of difficulty in breathing satisfactorily at times, and of heavy lethargic sleep, with dreams that frighten her, but regarding which she can remember nothing. She says that as a child she used to walk in her sleep, and that when in Whitby the habit came back, and that once she walked out in the night and went to East Cliff, where Miss Murray found her. But she assures me that of late the habit hasn't returned. I am in doubt, and so have done the best thing I know of. I have written to my old friend and master, Professor Van Helsing of Amsterdam, who knows as much about obscure diseases as anyone in the world. I have asked him to come over, and as you told me that all things were to be at your charge, I mentioned to him who you are and your relations to her. This, my dear fellow, is in obedience to your wishes, for I am only too proud and happy to do anything I can for her. Van Helsing would, I know, do anything for me, for a personal reason. So, no matter on what ground he comes, we must accept his wishes. He is a seemingly arbitrary man, but this is because he knows what he is talking about better than anyone else. He's a philosopher and metaphysician, and one of the most advanced scientists of his day, and he has, I believe, an absolutely open mind. This, with an iron nerve, a temper of the iceberg, an indomitable resolution, self-command, and toleration exalted from virtues to blessings, and the kindliest and truest heart that beats. These form his equipment for the noble work that he is doing for mankind. Work both in theory and practice, for his views are as wide as his all-embracing sympathy. I tell you these facts that you may know, while I have such confidence in him. I have asked him to come at once. I shall see Miss Westerner tomorrow again. She is to meet me at the stores, so that I may not alarm her mother by too early a repetition of my call. Yours always, John Seward. So I'm just looking at the clock. Letter to Abraham Van Helsing, M.D., D, Ph.D., Lit, etc., etc. He's got a lot of titles. To Dr. Seward. 2 September, my good friend. When I have received your letter, I am already coming to you. By good fortune, I can leave just at once, without wrong to any of those who have trusted me. Were fortune other than it were bad for those who have trusted, for I come to my friend when he called me to aid those he holds dear. Tell your friend when that time you sucked from my wound so swiftly the poison of the gangrene from that knife that our other friend, too nervous, let slip. You did more for him when he wants my aids, and you call for them than all his great fortune could do. But it is pleasure added to do for him, your friend. It is to you that I come. Have then rooms for me at the Great Eastern Hotel, so that I may be nearer to hand. And please it so arrange that we may see the young lady not too late on tomorrow, for it is likely that I may have to return here that night. But if need be, I shall come again in 3 days, and stay longer, if it must. Till then, goodbye, my friend, John. Letter of Dr. Seward to Honorable Arthur Holmwood, 3 September. My dear Art, Van Helsing has come and gone. He came on with me to Hillingham, and found that, by Lucy's discretion, her mother was lunching out, so that we were alone with her. Van Helsing made a very careful examination of the patient. He is to report to me, and I shall advise you, for of course I was not present all the time. He is, I fear, much concerned, but says he must think. When I told him of our friendship, and how you trusted me in the matter, he said, you must tell him all you think. Tell him what I think, if you can guess it, if you will. Nay, I'm not jesting. This is no jest, but life and death, perhaps more. I asked what he meant by that, for he was very serious. This was when he had come back to town and he was having a cup of tea before starting on his return to Amsterdam. He would not give me any further clue. You must not be angry with me, Art, because his very reticence means that all his brains are working for her good. He will speak plainly enough when the time comes, be sure. So I told him I would simply write an account of our visit, just as if I were doing a descriptive special article for the Daily Telegraph. He seemed not to notice, but remarked that the smuts in London were not quite so bad as they used to be when he was a student here. I'm to get his report tomorrow, if he can possibly make it. In any case, I'm to have a letter. Well, as to the visit, Lucy was more cheerful than on the day I first saw her, and certainly looked better. She had lost something of the ghastly look that so upset you, and her breathing was normal. She was very sweet to the professor, as she always is, and tried to make him feel at ease, though I could see that the poor girl was making it a hard struggle for it. I believe Van Helsing saw it too, for I saw the quick look under his bushy brows that I knew of old. Then he began to chat of all things except ourselves, and diseases, and with such an infinite geniality that I could see poor Lucy's pretense of animation merge into reality. Then, without any seeming change, he brought the conversation gently round to his visit, and suavely said, "My dear young miss, I have the so great pleasure, because you are so much beloved. That is much, my dear. Ever were there that which I do not see. They told me you were down in spirit, and that you were of a ghastly pale. To them I say poof." And he snapped his fingers at me and went on. "But you and I shall show them how wrong they are. How can he," and he pointed at me, with the same look and gesture as that with which once he pointed me out to his class, on, or rather after, a particular occasion which he never fails to remind me of, know anything of young ladies? He had his madmans to play with, and to bring them back to happiness, and to those that love them. It is much to do, and, but there are rewards, in what we can bestow such happiness. But the young ladies, he has no wife nor daughter, and the young do not tell themselves to the young, but to the old, like me, who have known so many sorrows and the causes of them. So, my dear, we will send him away to smoke a cigarette in the garden, whilst you and I have a little talk to ourselves." I took the hint and strolled about, and presently the professor came to the window and called me in. He looked grave, but said, "I have made careful examination, but there is no functional cause. With you I agree that there has been much blood lost. It has been, but is not. But the conditions of her are in no way anemic. I have asked her to send me her maid, that I may ask just one or two questions. That so I may not chance to miss nothing. I know well what she will say. And yet there is cause. There is always cause for everything. I must go back home and think. You must send to me the telegram every day, and if there be cause, I shall come again. The disease, for not to be all well, is a disease, interests me. And the sweet young dear, she interests me too. She charmed me. And for her, if not for you or disease, I come." As I tell you, he would not say a word more, even when we were alone. And so now, Art, you know all I know. I shall keep stern watch. I shall trust your poor father is rallying. It must be a terrible thing to you, my dear old fellow, to be placed in such a position between two people who are both so dear to you. I know your idea of duty to your father, and you are right to stick to it. But, if need be, I shall send you word to come at once to Lucy. So do not be over anxious unless you hear from me. Okay. Dr. Seward's diary. 4 September. Zoophagous. Phagos. Zoophagous. Leave it at that. Patient. Still keeps up our interest in him. He had only one outburst, and that was yesterday, at an unusual time. Just before the stroke of noon, he began to grow restless. The attendant knew the symptoms, and at once summoned aid. Fortunately, the men came at a run, and were just in time. For at the stroke of noon, he became so violent that it took all their strength to hold him. In about 5 minutes, however, he began to get more and more quiet, and finally sank into a sort of melancholy, in which state he has remained up to now. The attendant tells me that his screams whilst in the perioxum were really appalling. I found my hands full when I got in, attending to some of the other patients who were frightened by him. Indeed. I can quite understand the effect, for the sounds disturbed even me, though I was some distance away. It is now after the dinner hour of the asylum, and as yet my patient sits in a corner brooding, with a dull, sullen, woebegone look on his face, which seems rather to indicate than to show something directly. I can't quite understand it. Later, another change in my patient. At 5 o'clock, I looked in on him, and found him seemingly as happy and contented as he used to be. He was catching flies and eating them, and was keeping note of his capture by marking nail marks on the edge of the door between the ridges of padding. When he saw me, he came over and apologized for his bad conduct, and asked me in a very humble, cringing way to be led back to his own room, and to have his notebook back. I thought it well to humor him, so he is back in his own room with the window open. He has the sugar of his tea spread out on the windowsill, and is reaping quite a harvest of flies. He is not now eating them, but putting them in a box, as of old, and is already examining the corners of his room to find a spider. I try to get him to talk about the past few days, for any clue to his thoughts would be of immense help to me. But he would not rise. For a moment or two, he looked very sad, and said in a sort of faraway voice, as though saying it rather to himself than to me, all over, all over. He has deserted me. No hope for me, unless I do it for myself. Then suddenly turning to me in a resolute way, he said, Doctor, won't you be very good to me, and let me have a little more sugar? I think it would be good for me. And the flies? I said. Yes, the flies like it too, and I like the flies, therefore I like it. And there are people who know so little as to think that madmen do not argue. I procured him a double supply, and left him as happy a man as I suppose any in the world. I wish I could fathom his mind. Midnight. Another change in him. I had been to see Miss Westerner, whom I found much better, and had just returned, and was standing at a road gate looking at the sunset, when once more I heard him yelling. As his room is on the side of the house, I could hear it better than in the morning. It was a shock to me to turn from the wonderful smoky beauty of a sunset over London, with its lurid lights and inky shadows, and all the marvelous tints that come on the foul clouds, even in foul weather, to realize all the grim sternness of my own cold stone building, with its wealth of breathing misery, and my own desolate heart to endure it all. I reached him just as the sun was going down, and from his window saw the red disk sink. As it sank, he became less and less frenzied, and just as it dipped, he slid from the hands that held him, an inert mass on the floor. It is wonderful, however, what an intellectual, recuperative power lunatics have, for within a few minutes he stood up, quite calmly, and looked around him. Okay, the word lunatics, let's clear this up first. This book was written in mid to late 1800s. Okay, so some of this stuff is not going to be, stuff we would say or, how we would phrase things today. Just want to get that out. Please do not call the internet police on me or anything like that. I'm just reading from this book, and if I catch stuff ahead of me while I'm reading, I'll make the changes on it. If I don't, then this is what happens, okay? That's the thing with the lunatics. Okay. Okay. For within a few minutes he stood up quite calmly and looked around him. I signaled to the attendants not to hold him, for I was anxious to see what he would do. He went straight over to the window and brushed out the crumbs of sugar. Then he took his fly box and emptied it outside and threw away the box. Then he shut the window and, crossing over, sat down on his bed. All this surprised me, so I asked him, "Are you not going to keep flies any more?" "No," said he. "I'm sick of all that rubbish." He certainly is a wonderfully interesting study. I wish I could get some glimpse of his mind, or of the cause of his sudden passion. Stop. There may be a clue after all. If we can find out why today his madness came on at high noon and at sunset. Could it be that there is a malign influence of the sun at periods which affects certain natures, as at times the moon does others. We'll see. We shall see. Telegram. Seaward, London, to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. 4 September. Patient still. Better today. Telegram. Seaward, London, to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. 5 September. Patient greatly improved. Good appetite, sleeps naturally, good spirits, color coming back. Telegram. Seaward, London, to Van Helsing, Amsterdam, September 6. Terrible change for the worse. Come at once. Do not lose an hour. I hold over telegram to Homewood till I have seen you. Okay, next chapter, chapter X. I hate Roman numerals. Letter, Dr. Seward to Honorable Arthur Homewood. 6 September. My dear Art, my news today is not so good. Lucy this morning had gone back a bit. There is, however, one good thing which has arisen from it. Mrs. Westenra, again, was naturally anxious concerning Lucy and has consulted me professionally about her. I took advantage of the opportunity and told her that my old master, Van Helsing, the great specialist, was coming to stay with me, and that I would put her in his charge conjointly with myself. So now we can come and go without alarming her unduly, for a shock to her would mean sudden death, and this, in Lucy's weak condition, might be disastrous to her. We are hedged in with difficulties, all of us, my poor old fellow, but, please, God, we shall come through them all right. If any need, I shall write, so that if you do not hear from me, take it for granted that I am simply waiting for news. In haste, yours ever, John Seward. Dr. Seward's Diary. 7 September. The first thing Van Helsing said to me when we met at Liverpool Street was, "Have you said anything to our young friend, the lover of her?" "No," I said. "I waited till I had seen you. So I said in my telegram. I wrote him a letter simply telling him that you were coming, as Miss Westenra was not so well, and that I should let him know if need be." "Right, my friend," he said. "Quite right. Better he not know as yet. Perhaps he shall never know. I pray so. But if it be needed, then he shall know all. And my good friend John, let me caution you. You deal with madmen, okay? All men are mad in some way or other. And inasmuch as you deal discreetly with your madmen, so deal with God's madmen too. The rest of the world. You tell not your madmen what you do, nor why you do it. You tell them not what you think. So you shall keep knowledge in its place, where it may rest, where it may gather its kind around it, and breed. You and I shall keep as yet what we know here and here." He touched me on the heart and on the forehead, and then touched himself the same way. "I have for myself thoughts at the present. Later I shall unfold to you." "Why not now?" I asked. "It may do some good. We may arrive at some decision." He stopped and looked at me and said, "My friend John, when the corn is grown, even before it's ripened, while the milk of its mother earth is in him, and the sunshine has not yet begun to paint him with his gold, the husbandman, he pull the ear and rub it between his rough hands, and blow away the green chaff, and say to you, 'Look, he's good corn. He'll make a good crop when the time comes.' I do not see the application, and told him so. For reply he reached over and took my ear in his hand and pulled it playfully, as he used to long ago to do at the lectures, and said, 'The good husbandman tell you, so then because he knows, but not till then. But you do not find the good husbandman dig up his planted corn to see if he grow. That is for the children who play at husbandry, and not for those who take it as of the work of their life. See you now, my friend John? I have sown my corn, and nature has her work to do in making it sprout. If he sprout at all, there's some promise, and I wait till the ear begins to swell." He broke off, for he evidently saw that I understood. Then he went on, and very gravely, "You were always a careful student, and your case book was ever more full than the rest. You were only student then. Now you're master. And I trust that good habit have not failed. Remember, my friend, that knowledge is stronger than memory. and we should not trust the weaker. Even if you have not kept the good practice, let me tell you that this case of our dear Miss is one that may be mined. I say maybe, of such interest to us and others that old arrest may not make him kick the beam. As your people say, take then good note of it. Nothing is too small. I counsel you. Put down in record even your doubts and surmises. Hereafter, it may be of interest to you to see how true you guess. We learn from failure, not from success. When I described Lucy's symptoms, the same as before, but infinitely more marked, he looked very grave, but said nothing. He took with him a bag in which were many instruments and drugs, the ghastly paraphernalia of our beneficial trade, as he once called it, the equipment of a professor of the healing craft. When we were shown in at Mrs. Westenra. Keep wanting to say Westenra met us. She was alarmed, but not nearly so much as I expected to find her. Nature, in one of her beneficent moods, has ordained that even death has some antidote to its own terrors. Here, in a case where any shock may prove fatal, matters are so ordered that, from some cause or other, the thing's not personal. Even the terrible change in her daughter, to whom she is so attached, did not seem to reach her. It is something like the way Dame Nature gathers round a foreign body, an envelope of some insensitive tissue which can protect from evil that which it would otherwise harm by contact. If this be an ordered selfishness, then we should pause before we condemn anyone for the vice of egoism. For there may be deeper root for its causes than we have knowledge of. I used my knowledge of this phase of spiritual pathology and laid down a rule that she should not be present with Lucy or think of her illness more than was absolutely required. She assented readily, so readily that I saw again the hand of nature fighting for life. Van Helsing and I were shown up to Lucy's room. If I was shocked when I saw her yesterday, I was horrified when I saw her today. She was ghastly, chalkily pale. The red seemed to have gone from even her lips and gums, and the bones of her face stood out prominently. Her breathing was painful to see or hear. Van Helsing's face grew set as marble, and his eyebrows converged till they almost touched over his nose. Lucy lay motionless, and did not seem to have strength to speak. So for a while we were all silent. Then Van Helsing beckoned to me, and we went gently out of the room. The instant we had closed the door, he stepped quickly along the passage to the next door, which was open. Then he pulled me quickly in with him, and closed the door. "My God," he said, "this is dreadful. There is no time to be lost. She will die for sheer want of blood to keep the heart's action as it should be. There must be transfusion of blood at once. Is it you or me?" "I'm younger and stronger, Professor. It must be me." "Then get ready at once. I will bring up my bag. I'm prepared." I went downstairs with him, and as we were going there was a knock at the hall door. When we reached the hall, the maid had just opened the door, and Arthur was stepping quickly in. He rushed up to me, saying in an eager whisper, "Jack, I was so anxious. I read between the lines of your letter, and have been in agony." Let's see. The dad was better, so I ran down here to see for myself. "Is not that gentleman Dr. Van Helsing? I'm so thankful to you, sir, for coming when first the professor's eyes had lit upon him. He had been angry at his interruption at such a time. But now, as he took in his stalwart proportions and recognized the strong young manhood which seemed to emanate from him, his eyes gleamed. Without a pause, he said to him gravely, as he held out his hand, 'Sir, you've come in time. You are the lover of our dear miss. She is bad, very, very bad. Nay, my child, do not go like that.' For he suddenly grew pale and sat down in a chair almost fainting. 'You are to help her. You can do more than any that live. And your courage is your best help.' 'Well, what can I do?' asked Arthur, hoarsely. 'Tell me, and I shall do it. My life is hers, and I would give the last drop of blood in my body for her.' The professor has a strongly humorous side, and I could, from old knowledge, detect a trace of its origin in his answer. 'My young sir, I do not ask so much as that, not the last. What shall I do? There was fire in his eyes, and his open nostril quivered with intent. Van Helsing slapped him on the shoulder. Come, he said. You're a man. It is a man we want. You are better than me, better than my friend John. Arthur looked bewildered, and the professor went on by explaining in a very kindly way. Young Miss is bad. Very bad. She wants blood, and blood she must have or die. My friend John and I have consulted, and we are about to perform what we call a transfusion of blood, to transfer from full veins of one to the empty veins which pine for him. John was to give his blood, as he is the more young and stronger than me. Here, Arthur, took my hand and wrung it hard in silence. But now you're here. You are more good than us, old or young, who toil much in the world of thought. Our nerves are not so calm, and our blood not so bright than yours. Arthur turned to him and said, If you only knew how gladly I would die for her, you would understand. He stopped, with a sort of choke in his voice. Good boy, said Van Helsing. In the not so far off, you will be happy that you have done all for her that you love. Come now and be silent. You shall kiss her once before it's done. But then you must go. And you must leave at my sign. Say no word to Madam. You know how it is with her. There must be no shock. Any knowledge of this would be one. Come. We all went up to Lucy's room. Arthur, by direction, remained outside. Lucy turned her head and looked at us, but said nothing. She was not asleep, but she was simply too weak to make the effort. Her eyes spoke to us, that was all. Van Helsing took some things from his bag and laid them on a little table out of sight. Then he mixed a narcotic, and coming over to the bed, said cheerily, Now, little miss, here is your medicine. Drink it off, like a good child. See, I lift you so that to swallow is easy. Yes. She made the effort with success. It astonished me how long the drug took to act. This, in fact, marked the extent of her weakness. The time seemed endless until sleep began to flicker in her eyelids. At last, however, the narcotic began to manifest its potency, and she fell into a deep sleep. When the professor was satisfied, he called Arthur into the room and bade him strip off his coat. Then he added, You may take that one little kiss whilst I bring over the table. Friend John helped me, so neither of us looked whilst he bent over her. Van Helsing, turning to me, said, He is so young and strong, and of blood so pure, that we need not do anything to it. Then, with swiftness, but with absolute method, Van Helsing performed the operation. As the transfusion went on, something like life seemed to come back to poor Lucy's cheeks. And through Arthur's growing pallor, the joy of his face seemed absolutely to shine. After a bit, I began to grow anxious, for the loss of blood was telling on Arthur. Strong man as he was, it gave me an idea of what a terrible strain Lucy's system must have undergone, because it weakened Arthur, only partially restored her. But the professor's face was set, and he stood watch in hand, with his eyes fixed, now on the patient and now on Arthur. I could hear my own heartbeat. Presently, he said in a soft voice, Do not stir an instant. It is enough. You attend him. I will look to her. When all was over, I could see how much Arthur was weakened. I dressed the wound and took his arm to bring him away. When Van Helsing spoke, without turning around, the man seems to have eyes in the back of his head. The brave lover, I think, deserved another kiss, which he should have presently. And, as he now finished his operation, he adjusted the pillow to the patient's head. As he did, so the narrow black velvet band, which she seems always to wear around her throat, buckled with an old diamond buckle, with her lover had given her, was dragged a little up, and showed a red mark on her throat. Arthur didn't notice it, but I could hear the deep hiss of indrawn breath, which is one of Van Helsing's ways of betraying emotion. He said nothing at the moment, but turned to me, saying, Now take down our brave young lover. Give him some of the port wine, and let him lie down for a while. He must then go home and rest, sleep much and eat much, that he may be recruited of what he has so given to his love. He must not stay here. Hold a moment. I may take it, sir, that you are anxious of result. Then bring it with you that in all ways the operation is successful. You have saved her life this time, and you can go home and rest easy in the mind that all that can be is. I shall tell her all when she is well. She shall love you none the less for what you've done. Goodbye." When Arthur had gone, I went back to the room. Lucy was sleeping gently, but her breathing was stronger. I could see the counterpane move as her breast heaved. By the bedside sat Van Helsing, looking at her intently. The velvet band again covered the red mark. I asked the professor in a whisper, "What do you make of that mark on her throat?" "What do you make of it?" "I've not examined it yet," I answered. And there proceeded to lose the band. Oh, and then there proceeded to loosen the band. Just over the external jugular vein, there were 2 punctures, not large, but not wholesome looking. There was no sign of disease, but the edges were white and worn looking, as if by some fruition. It at once occurred to me that this wound, or whatever it was, might be the means of the manifest loss of blood. But I abandoned the idea as soon as formed, for such a thing could not be. The whole bed would have been drenched to scarlet with blood, which the girl must have lost to leave such a pallor as she had before the transfusion. "Well," said Van Helsing. "Well," said I can make nothing of it." The professor stood up. "I must go back to Amsterdam tonight," he said. "There are books and things there which I want. You must remain here all the night, and you must not let your sight pass from her." "Shall I have a nurse?" I asked. "We are the best nurses, you and I. You keep watch all night, see that she is well fed, and that nothing disturbs her. You must not sleep all the night. Later on we can sleep, you and I. I shall be back as soon as possible, and then we may begin." "May begin?" I said. "What on earth do you mean?" "We shall see," he answered, and he hurried out. He came back a moment later and put his head inside the door and said, with warning finger held up, "Remember, she's your charge. If you leave her, and harm befall, you shall not sleep easy hereafter." Dr. Seward's diary continued. 8 September. I sat up all night with Lucy. The opiate worked itself off towards dusk, and she waked naturally. She looked at different being from what she had been before the operation. Her spirits even were good, and she was full of happy energy. But I could see evidences of the absolute prostration which she had undergone. When I told Mrs. Westenra that Dr. Van Helsing had directed that I should sit up with her, she almost pooh-poohed the idea, pointing out her daughter's renewed strength and excellent spirits. I was firm, however, and made preparations for my long vigil. When her maid had prepared her for the night, I came in, having in the meantime had supper, and took a seat by the bedside. She did not in any way make any objection, but looked at me gratefully whenever I caught her eye. After a long spell, she seemed sinking off to sleep, but with an effort seemed to pull herself together and shake it off. This was repeated several times, with greater effort, and with shorter pauses, as the time moved on. It was apparent that she did not want to sleep, so I tackled the subject at once. "You do not want to go to sleep?" "No, I'm afraid. Afraid to go to sleep." "Why so? Is it the boon we all crave for?" "Ah, not if you were like me. If sleep was to you a presage of horror." "A presage of horror? What on earth do you mean?" "I don't know. Oh, I don't know. And that is what is so terrible. All this weakness comes to me in sleep, until I dread the very thought. But, my dear girl, you may sleep tonight. I am here watching you, and I can promise that nothing will happen. Ah, I can trust you." I seized the opportunity and said, "I promise you that if I see any evidence of the bad dreams, I will wake you at once." "You will? Oh, will you, really? How good you are to me." Then I will sleep, and almost at the word she gave a deep sigh of relief and sank back to sleep. All night long I watched by her. She never stirred, but slept on in a deep, tranquil, life-giving, health-giving sleep. Her lips were slightly parted, and her breast rose and fell with the regularity of a pendulum. There was a smile on her face, and it was evident that no bad dreams had come to disturb her peace of mind. In the early morning her maid came, and I left her in her care and took myself back home, for I was anxious about many things. I sent a short wire to Van Helsing and Arthur, telling them of the excellent result of the operation. My own work with its manifold arrears. It took me all day to clear off. It was dark when I was able to inquire about my patient. The report was good. He had been quite quiet for the past day and night. A telegram came from Van Helsing in Amsterdam whilst I was at dinner, suggesting that I should be at Hillingham tonight, as it might be well to be at hand, and stating that he was leaving by the night mail and would join me early in the morning. 9th September. I was pretty tired and worn out when I got to Hillingham. For 2 nights I had hardly had a wink of sleep, and my brain was beginning to feel that numbness which marks cerebral exhaustion. Lucy was up and in cheerful spirits. When she shook hands with me, she looked sharply in my face and said, "No sitting up tonight for you. You are worn out. I am quite well again. Indeed I am. And if there is to be any sitting up, it is I who will sit up with you." I would not argue the point, but went and had my supper. Lucy came with me, and, enlivened by her charming presence, I made an excellent meal, and had a couple of glasses of more than excellent port. Then Lucy took me upstairs and showed me a room next to her own, where a cozy fire was burning. "Now," she said, "you must stay here. I shall leave this door open, and my door too. You can lie on the sofa, for I know that nothing would induce any of you doctors to go to bed whilst there is a patient above the horizon. If I want anything, I shall call out, and you can come to me at once." I could not but acquiesce, for I was dog-tired, and could not have sat up had I tried. So, on her renewing her promise to call me if she should want anything, I lay on the sofa and forgot all about everything. Lucy's diary. 9 September. I feel so happy tonight. I have been so miserably weak that to be able to think and move about is like feeling the sunshine after a long spell of east wind out of the steel sky. Somehow Arthur feels very, very close to me. I seem to feel his presence warm about me. I suppose it is that sickness and weakness are selfish things and turn our inner eyes and sympathies on ourselves, whilst health and strength give love rein, and in thought and feeling he can wander where he wills. I know where my thoughts are. If Arthur only knew. My dear, your ears must tingle as you sleep, as mine do, waking. Oh, the blissful rest of last night. How I slept with that dear good Dr. Seward watching me. And tonight I shall not fear to sleep, since he is close at hand and within call. Thank you, everybody, for being so good to me. Thank God. Good night, Arthur. Dr. Seward's diary. 10 September. I was conscious of the professor's hand on my head, and started awake all in a second. That is one of the things that we learn in an asylum, at any rate. And how is our patient? Well, when I left her, or rather when she left me, I answered. "Come, let us see," he said, and together we went into the room. The blind was down, and I went over to raise it gently whilst Dr. Helsing stepped with his soft, cat-like tread over to the bed. As I raised the blind and the morning sunlight flooded the room, I heard the professor's low hiss of inspiration, and knowing its rarity, a deadly fear shot through my heart. As I passed over, he moved back, and his exclamation of horror, "Got it, Himmel," needed no enforcement from his agonized face. He raised his hand and pointed to the bed, and his iron face was drawn and ashen white. I fell to my knees. I felt my knees tremble. There on the bed, seemingly in the swoon, lay poor Lucy, more horribly white and wan-looking than ever. Even the lips were white, and the gums seemed to have shrunken back from the teeth, as we sometimes see in a corpse after prolonged illness. Van Helsing raised his foot to stamp in anger, but the instinct of his life and all the long years of habit stood to him, and he put it down again softly. "Quick," he said, "bring the brandy." I flew to the dining room and returned with the decanter. He wetted the poor white lips with it, and together we rubbed the palm and wrist and heart. He felt her heart, and after a few moments of agonizing suspense said, "It is not too late. It beats, though feebly, but all our work is undone. We must begin again. There is no young Arthur here now. I have to call on you yourself, this time, friend John." As he spoke, he was dipping into his bag and producing the instruments for transfusion. I had taken off my coat and rolled up my shirt sleeve. There was no possibility of an opioid just at the present, and no need of one, and so, without a moment's delay, we began the operation. After a time, it did not seem a short time either, for the draining away of one's blood, no matter how willingly it be given, is a terrible feeling. Van Helsing held up a warning finger. "Do not stir," he said, "but I fear that with growing strength she may wake, and that would make danger. Oh, so much danger. But I shall precaution take. I shall give hypodermic injection of morphia." He produced them, swiftly and deftly, to carry out his intent. The effect on Lucy was not bad, for the faint seemed to merge subtly into the narcotic sleep. It was with a feeling of personal pride that I could see a faint tinge of color steal back into the pallid cheeks and lips. No man knows till he experiences it what it is to feel his own life-blood drawn away from the veins of the woman he loves. The professor watched me critically. "That will do," he said. "Already?" I added, "You took a great deal more from art." To which he smiled, a sad sort of smile, as he replied, "He is her lover, her fiancé. You have work, much work, to do for her and for others, and the present will suffice." When we stopped the operation, he attended to Lucy, whilst I applied digital pressure to my own incision. I laid down, whilst I waited his leisure to attend me, for I felt faint and a little sick. But by and by he bound up my wound and set me downstairs to get a glass of wine for myself. As I was leaving the room, he came after me and half whispered, "Mind, nothing must be said of this. If our young lover should turn up unexpected, as before, no word to him. It would at once frighten him and then jealous him. There must be none. So." When I came back, he looked at me carefully and then said, "You're not much the worse. Go into the room and lie on your sofa and rest a while. Then, have much breakfast and come here to me." I followed out his orders, for I knew how right and wise they were. I had done my part, and now my next duty was to keep up my strength. I felt very weak, and in the weakness lost something of the amazement at what had occurred. I fell asleep on the sofa, however, wondering over and over again how Lucy had made such a retrograde movement, and how she could have been drained of so much blood, with no sign anywhere to show for it. I think I must have continued my wonder in my dreams, for, sleeping and waking, my thoughts always came back to the little punctures in her throat and the ragged, exhausted appearance of their edges, tiny though they were. Lucy slept well into the day, and when she awoke, she was fairly well and strong, though not nearly so much as the day before. When Van Helsing had seen her, he went out for a walk, leaving me in charge, with strict injunctions that I was not to leave her for a moment. I could hear his voice in the hall, asking the way to the nearest telegraph office. Lucy chatted with me freely, and seemed quite unconscious that anything had happened. I tried to keep her amused and interested when her mother came up to see her. She did not seem to notice any change whatsoever, but said to me gratefully, "We owe you so much, Dr. Seward, for all you've done, but you really must now take care not to overwork yourself. You are looking pale yourself. You want a wife to nurse and look after you a bit. That you do." As she spoke, Lucy turned crimson, though it was only momentarily, for her poor wasted veins could not stand for long such an unwanted drain to the head. The reaction came in excessive pallor as she turned imploring eyes on me. I smiled and nodded, and laid my finger on my lips. With a sigh, she sank back amid her pillows. Van Helsing returned in a couple of hours, and presently said to me, "Now you go home and eat much and drink enough. Make yourself strong. I stay here tonight, and I shall sit up with little miss myself. You and I must watch the case, and we must have none other to know. I have grave reasons. No, do not ask them. Think what you will. Do not fear to think even the most non-probables. Good night." Good night. In the hall, two of the maids came to me and asked if they or either of them might not sit up with Miss Lucy. They implored me to let them, and when I said it was Dr. Helsing's wish, Van Helsing's wish that either he or I should sit up. They asked me quite piteously to intercede with the foreign gentlemen. I was much touched by their kindness. Perhaps it is because I am weak at present, and perhaps because it was on Lucy's account, that their devotion was manifested. For over and over again have I seen similar instances of women's kindness. I got back here in time for a late dinner, went my rounds, all well, and set this down whilst waiting for sleep. It is coming. 11 September. This afternoon I went over to Hillingham, found Van Helsing in excellent spirits, and Lucy much better. Shortly after I arrived, a bit of parcel from abroad came for the professor. He opened it with much empressement, as assumed, of course, and showed a great bundle of white flowers. "These are for you, Miss Lucy," he said. "For me? Oh, Dr. Van Helsing." "Yes, my dear, but not for you to play with. These are medicines." Here Lucy made a wry face. "Nay, but they are not to take in decoration. Oh, in decoction or in nauseous form. So you need not snub that so charming nose, or I shall point out to my friend Arthur what woes he may have to endure in seeing so much beauty, that he so loves so much sport. Aha, my pretty miss, that bring me so nice nose, all straight again. This is medicinal, but you do not know how. I put him in your window. I make pretty wreath and hang him round your neck, so that you sleep well. Oh yes, they, like the lotus flower, make your trouble forgotten. It smells so like the waters of Lethe, as that fountain of youth that the conquistadors sought for in the Floridas, and find him all too late." While she was speaking, Lucy had been examining the flowers and smelling them. Now she threw them down, saying with half laughter and half disgust, "Oh, Professor, I believe you are only putting up a joke on me. Why, these flowers are only common garlic." To my surprise, Van Helsing rose up and said with all his sternness, his iron jaw set, and his bushy eyebrows meeting, "No trifling with me. I never jest. There is grim purpose in all I do, and I warn you that you do not thwart me. Take care, for the sake of others, if not for your own." Then, seeing poor Lucy scared, as she might well be, he went on more gently, "Oh, little miss, my dear, do not fear me. I only do for your good, but there is much virtue to you in those so common flowers. See, I place them myself in your room. I make myself the wreath that you are to wear. But hush, no telling others that make you so inquisitive questions. We must obey, and silence is a part of obedience, and obedience is to bring you strong and well in the loving arms that will wait for you. Now sit still a while, come with me, friend John, and you shall help me deck the room with my garlic, which is all the way from Haarlem, where my friend Vanderpool raised herb in his glass houses all the year. I had to telegraph yesterday, or they would not have been here." We went into the room, taking the flowers with us. The professor's actions were certainly odd, and not to be found in any pharmacopoeia that I've ever heard of. First, he fastened up the windows and latched them securely. Next, taking a handful of the flowers, he rubbed them all over the sashes, as though to ensure that every whiff of air that might get in would be laden with the garlic smell. Then, with a wisp, he rubbed all over the jamb of the door, above, below, and at each side, and round the fireplace in the same way. It all seemed grotesque to me, and presently I said, "Well, Professor, I know you always have a reason for what you do, but this certainly puzzles me. It is well we have no septic here, or he would say that you were working some spell to keep out an evil spirit." "Perhaps I am," he answered, quietly, as he began to make the wreath which Lucy was to wear round her neck. When we waited whilst Lucy made her toilet for the night, and when she was in bed, he came and himself fixed the wreath of garlic round her neck. The last words he said to her were, "Take care you do not disturb it, and even if the room feel close, do not tonight open the window or the door." "I promise," said Lucy, "and thank you both 1,000 times for all your kindness to me. Oh, what have I done to be blessed with such friends?" As we left the house in my fly, which was waiting, Van Helsing said, "Tonight I can sleep in peace, and sleep I want. 2 nights of travel, much reading in the day between, and much anxiety on the day to follow, and a night to sit up without to wink. Tomorrow in the morning, early, you call for me, and we come together to see our pretty miss, so much more strong for my spell, which I have to work. Ho ho. He seemed so confident that I, remembering my own confidence, 2 nights before, and with the baneful result, felt awe and vague terror. It must have been my weakness that made me hesitate to tell it to my friend. But I felt it all the more, like unshed tears. Okay, guys, that is it for today. We will continue this next week. Let me do this real quick. Power off. Thank you guys for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. Someone was at my door. That's where the dog went crazy. Anyway, I will be back tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, with Dr. Linda Salvin. We're going to be talking about generational curses. So I will see you first thing tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. You know, we're always equal opportunity here. We're just trying to get the word out about our little show. Okay, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Have a great evening, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Bye.